Hey, Stephen, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brian, for inviting me here. So yeah, Stephen Haig joined joined a company called Infoblox back in the day. It was a private company. We took it to IPO with selling a product that Microsoft were giving away for free at the time. So we were charging a premium for it, and that was the real, I know, like the real time to perfect sales because we were an unknown company charging for something that was given away for free. So it was a hard selling. So and then focused on a company, Nutanix, and went off to Rubrik. Nutanix successfully IPO'd, and rumor has it Rubrik might IPO later this month. So, specialize in taking companies from private to public. And then currently at Google Cloud Security, joined there 3 years ago to build that division. Worked with Sunil Podsi from Nutanix, who pulled me across here to come and help set this up. So yeah, really focus on building something small, unknown, and building it up for it with a big team.
Yeah.
So
And why sales for you? What was the motive, the drive?
yeah, so funny. So Brian, I thought when I was at university that the streets were paved with gold in marketing.
They're
And
not?
so, yeah, well, it was okay. Yeah, certainly if you can get a good job in Silicon Valley, but being in London, you can do well. But I was the guy that was, joined a graduate scheme at a company called Siemens Network Systems, and I was the guy that was writing all the RFIs and the RFPs and providing all that information. And I was earning good money, but then I was watching the sales guys come into the office and sales girls, and they had the flash car in the car park, and they were going on the club trip, and they were taking customers out for golf, and they had their expenses, long lunches, and I'm like, yeah, I need a piece of that. So yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was it.
A little
Very
fear of missing out, a little envy, and or control over your income.
yeah, definitely control over your income, and that for me also being the type of person I am, sort of, really focused on working hard to earn money, but also focused, quite happy to self-starter, work from home, and, really focus on stuff that is going to go and create money. I'm not really that money orientated, by the way. I'm success orientated. I love winning. I hate losing. I don't bet because, and I don't gamble because I hate losing more than I do winning. But yeah, that's my background.
Yeah, a lot of salespeople seem to have that competitive spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't, people always ask me, do you want to go and play tennis? I'm like, if I go and play tennis and learn now, I'll lose, and I hate it. I'll give up. So yeah, it's a bad trait, human trait that I have, but good for sales.
Yeah. And how did you learn sales? What were some of the key influences on you?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one. I mean, the first company I worked for was Siemens Network Systems. We were a Cisco reseller, so we had nothing other than the people. So we had no product. We had a fledgling managed service, so it was all around people, how we could make a difference, and we had a phenomenal team. And that was the first thing I realized, that actually, if you had a really phenomenal team that were all pulling in the same direction, we had great management and great leadership there at the time as well. And we just got things done, and we had some fun. But as I said earlier, with the real the real time that I learned how to sell was at Infoblox.
Yeah.
I would say back then, we had the sales force on the street that was the envy of every company. So, everybody got headhunted from Infoblox. It was like, if you can sell Infoblox, you can sell anything. We had a guy at the top there called Mark Smith, and oh my gosh, he was brutal. Yeah, he was brutal on process, and he would come over to fly into London, and he'd demand, to fill his diary, and we'd fill his diary with 30 meetings, and we'd try and tire him out. So he would, like, he'd go back to the hotel, but he wouldn't. He had so much energy. So, but he actually, I remember three guys stepped up when I first joined Infoblox as a junior salesperson. And three guys stepped up. A guy called Steve Glynn, now at Netscope, Mark Caprio, and Dirk Marichal, who's no name. And they said, give me, these were the three top sellers at Infoblox. And they said, what are the three things or what's the number one thing that you would recommend these, to everybody? And Mark Caprio, the guy was relentless with his activity. He would do the 20 meetings a week.
Really?
He would
Yeah.
do, oh my God, yeah. But even if they were just, he would take somebody for a Coke and a sandwich, but he would just be building that whole relationship. But he would do 30 meetings a week. He was relentless. He would play golf, by the way, first thing in the morning between 5 and 7, and then he'd turn up for work. Yeah, the guy was, special in that way. Great friend of mine now as well. Steve Glynn told me it was all about, he ran the Boston area, and he told me it was all about building a community. You have to nonstop every day figure out, who can help you sell. Is it a channel partner? Is it an alliance partner? Is there someone in your business that's done some work with them before? His whole thing was building that. Every day he would be having beers with Palo Alto or whoever it was to build that he could find a way into another customer. And so, yeah, I took that on board. And then Dirk Marichal probably gave me the most important thing at the time. And he said, it's all about qualification. Most important thing is you have a certain amount of time in your day. Make sure you spend it on things that are really important and are going to make a difference. And if they're not, be polite, save the customer time, and save yourself time.
I think that lesson is something that is hard to learn because being distracted feels good.
That I would say that's true, because you can fill your day with admin, Salesforce admin, which is important. You can fill your day with inviting people to events, or
Yeah.
there's so many demands today from managers around what ticks their boxes,
Yeah.
but are they actually going to help you sell more? And also I think the benefit of being slightly older, more mature, and having more experience is you're able to say no. Whereas when you're young, it's really hard to say to your manager no, because they're going to get you a pay rise or get you some more shares or
They're in
help you with
charge.
the
Yeah.
promotion. Yeah, they're in charge. Whereas I think when you're a little bit more mature, you have more experience, and I think actually, if you say no with a reason, generally a manager will kind of respect your decision, especially if you're a top performer.
Yeah.
That always helps.
Was there a particular epiphany that kind of got you on the time thing? Because it matches almost exactly with qualification,
Yeah.
because you're not going to spend your time on something you're not going to get rewarded for.
I would say having kids, having kids and having a family was my epiphany of spending time on things that are important. So yeah, I have two wonderful children, Bella and Luke. Bella's into a drama, so go and watch her at theater, in theater. That would be a top thing. And my son, I'm not sure where he gets his sporting ability from, but he wants to be a professional golfer. And he's a good sportsman. And I put it down to this: I will spend as much time as I can with a client that wants to be helped, and we can help him with our solutions, and we can, I like problem solving. If there's a problem that we can solve, we can fix it. If we can't, I'm happy, because but the barometer I use is I would rather watch my son play sport on a weekend than work a weekend working on an RFI or an RFP that we're never going to win. And so the barometer is that if you're gonna, I'm happy to earn some money and help you, but if you're gonna waste my time and I'm gonna waste your time, let's move on. So that was definitely the epiphany there, I'd say.
Yeah. Because, when you're a young single guy, maybe you have nothing going on during the weekend, right?
Yeah,
an RFI
Yeah,
might be a great use of time.
get me out the bars, Brian. So
Oh.
I'll be like, yeah, great. Yeah. So
And I used to have a similar barometer where it'd be like, I could have just taken the day off instead of wasting it going to talk to somebody who doesn't care.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think losing deals, because everybody, you lose deals through your career. And I think I can probably remember most of the deals that I've lost. They hurt, the battle scars from them. So losing deals, I think, definitely sharpens the focus, because that feeling of, wasted time, but not just my time. I actually think the other thing I think why people would come and work for me is that actually I value their time. So, there's often when I join another company, one of the technical engineers will join me. And what they hopefully appreciate about me is that I would never ask them to do something that I wouldn't do. And therefore, I'd never ask them to respond to an RFI and RFP if I wouldn't do it. So I'm as protective of their time as I am of my time. And I think that's quite an important thing you know, to have that, that passion for your team as much as yourself.
And what did you learn from one of those losses? Maybe a painful one early in your career. I don't mean to dig it up, but I'm just to share it with other people because it is important.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I reckon that of the RFIs and RFPs that I've blindly responded to, I would say if it's not 100% loss rate, it's probably north of 80. So again, going back to the time and qualification, is if something comes in now that we have not been involved in or had conversations or had an opportunity to help shape, the polite response is thank you so much, but we don't have the time to respond. However, if you would like to, spend some more time with us and we could spend some time understanding how we could fix your problem, look, we're all in.
Yep. Good.
So yeah, RFIs and RFPs are something that I've, had in my career, a real average time.
Now, have
of-
you ever sold in North America by any chance?
Yeah, had some customers in the US, and quite refreshingly different approach to working. Yeah.
Let's talk about that because when I talk to people in EMEA, they they seem to feel that RFI, RFP is like one in three as opposed
Yeah.
to zero.
1 in 10. Yeah.
And that procurement has a much larger role in the early stage of a deal. See, in the US, almost never do they get involved in the early part, unless
Yeah.
it's a big company, and it's not a good sign.
Yeah. I tell you, there's a really good book to read, actually. If you like a good read on the plane, Prisoners of Our Geography by a guy called Tim Marshall, who writes for the Sunday Times in the UK. He It's a really good book, but it talks about cultures and how they've evolved. It talks about Americans, the way that obviously the majority of Americans are immigrants, right? They've
All of
made a
them,
choice.
pretty much.
Yeah, they've made a choice. They've made a choice to leave their safe countries,
Yeah.
where they and took a risk. And I read that, and that was a really like interesting moment for me, because I was like, the way that when we work with Americans, they'll take a risk with a technology decision. I find you know, they'll do their due diligence, but they definitely move faster with technology choices in the US, without a doubt. And then he talks about obviously the Brits, right? And so with the Brits are, thousands of years or hundreds of years of evolving, is most of the time we all worked for the Lord of the Manor, right? Farming in his fields. So we didn't take necessarily risks because we never had to, right? And therefore, I think there's a lot more compliance, and checks and measures in selling in the UK, right? And we definitely see and I always use the analogy in America. If you make a technology decision and you get it right, great. If you get it wrong, it's not so bad. You took a risk, guys. We've made a calculated risk. It didn't pay off. In the UK, if you make a risk and get it wrong, I think you get fired. Maybe not fired, but you'll get pigeonholed. So it really is a very different culture to work in, I would say.
Well, that kind of makes sense because, I was thinking of my own ancestors in the, 17, 1800s leaving Ireland and Scotland
Yeah.
to land in the luxurious northern Canada, right? It's like, I'm not sure that's the destination you wanted to go to, but
Yeah.
it had to be pretty bad, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
had to be some real big reason. I don't know what it
It rains
was.
a lot. Yeah. It rains a lot.
Yeah. So, but back to the procurement, do they tend to get involved earlier, or they just want more structure and the appearance of structure and process and methodical
I would
steps?
say that's probably depends on the relationship. So one of the things that Mark Smith at Infoblox used to say to us, he says, when you're going to go and recruit someone, find out how many times they've moved companies and how many times they've been into the same company and sold the same, sold another technology. So at certain companies at Infoblox, Nutanix, Rubrik, I was able to, complete a hat trick in certain customers. So what he was really keen to see was that we were at the head of the cycle. We had the relationship. We could understand the business problem, work with the technology to solve it. So he was really keen that we got ahead and we were shaping that opportunity by introducing the technology and then procurement come in later.
Mhm.
Whereas I think where you don't have those relationships, procurement potentially will come in first, and you're just another number.
Yeah.
So I think that depends. But I definitely believe that there's more compliance in in the UK and the EU.
And how were you able to have that hat trick at four different companies or four different products into the same customers?
Yeah, I think that this goes back to again the new younger people join companies, and I help to coach them, and on that. How to build sales. I always talk about sales is like beginning. You have to listen, right? You talk too much. I reckon my wife probably I wouldn't have had a second date. So we talk about, building partnerships, and stuff goes wrong. And there's a large company in the UK. It's a US company, but with a big UK presence, and we sold them some Rubrik technology, right? And it probably didn't meet up to their what they wanted initially. Okay, and but you know what? We stuck with it for 18 months. We were in there every week. We made it work. And the product management, we got them involved from Rubrik, and we ended up using that experience of that company to build an outstanding product that we could then go and sell to other people of that scale. And the head of IT there always used to say, guys, it's what you did in the bad times that sets you back. There are too many people I see that will sell something, hand it over to a delivery team, and leave that conversation. Well, if it works, great. If it doesn't, you are never going back into that client ever again. And I think it's really important to build that partnership with a client, and you get closer to a client in bad times than you do good times.
Yeah. Because I think, reps want to move 100 miles an hour, right? They've
Yeah.
got quotas, they're ready,
Yeah.
but the client isn't.
Yeah. Well, you have to have many plates spinning, because what I've found in a lot of the technology is all about timing. Often in data protection, in what we're doing in cloud security with Google right now, in Nutanix and even Infoblox, you had to find the time, even if the current legacy product they had wasn't working. they didn't really want to go and put their hands up and say, "Hey guys, we've made a mistake. We want to Can we bring some budget for it?" So you had to. Sometimes you were lucky, but if you make enough, going back to the activity part of Mark Caprio, if you make enough calls and you have enough activity and you've got enough partners helping you, hopefully you can line them up so that you can close some short-term business, work on some longer term opportunities. But yeah, without a doubt, yeah, it's all about just all of those things that I said earlier.
Yeah, because I've got a lot of clients that are like that, that they get the technical win, and then there's a large gap between that and the purchase,
Yeah,
which is usually waiting for a have to. There's a lot of want to,
yeah, yeah.
but the have tos always get purchased first.
Yeah, without a doubt. One of the things actually from Rubric that there's a guy there called Mike Tornincasa, really like top guy, introduced all the sales culture at Rubric, which meant that everybody had this played off the same or sung off the same hymn book. But he had this thing called a champions deck for these big deals. And the champions deck, that does sound a little corny, right, to a Brit, but the champions deck was really cool. And the biggest deal we worked on last year that we closed, we went through the champions deck process. And the champions deck was all about, okay, what is it that you have now? And you would document this with the client, right? So we'd take them out for a workshop. You'd spend a day with them, and this champions deck was something that you would work with to get together. And the key thing with this was, what is it that you've got now? What are the problems that you've got? If you had a blank piece of paper, what would this look? What would you build, and what would it look like? Then obviously, then the rubric solution in this case, this is what it was capable of doing, and then you would give them a journey on how they could get there. And that champions deck evolved throughout the process, so that if somebody left or somebody came back and questioned the decision, you could all go back to this champions deck and say, "Oh, but hold on, you said that this was a problem and this is how we're going to fix it." Like, "Oh yeah, yeah, okay, great, off we go." And by the way, you'd have a TCO and a financial summary in there as well. And that champions deck became almost like a little Bible that you could always refer back to. And often customers would then take that out of our format and put it into their format and use that to go and do their internal selling, obviously with some tweaking there as well. So with that gap, obviously having everything documented, people forget, people change.
Too, yeah.
And having that sort of, documented as a joint document was critical.
Yeah, because whoever you're competing against, throws in their lockouts. Oh,
Yeah,
you don't need that. You need this.
yeah,
And all of a
yeah.
sudden the light has been moved, and now you're like looking around. No, it's this, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So that actually happened. So at Rubrik, we competed a lot against a company called Cohesity, and Cohesity Rubrik was really focused on securing the data, whereas Cohesity was more backup and secondary storage. And so they would go in without a doubt and they'd say, "Hey guys, Rubrik's really good at that. We do that too, but look, we've got secondary storage too, and it's the same price." And we'd be scratching our heads because the customer go, "Oh, we can get all of this for the same money." And then we go back and say, "But that wasn't your problem. You told us the problem was you wanted to secure your data for ransomware. We do that because we have immutable backups." And they go, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool." So that you're right. That was out without a doubt. Stop the FUD coming from the competition.
Yeah. And I got to imagine, given the dollar amount, it was highly competitive.
Without a doubt, everything all of those products were, and all of those highly competitive on the dollar amount, but also the fact that we were unknown. Nobody had heard of Nutanix. It was Nutanix, and what do you make? You make cereal and hyperconverged. No one had ever heard of that before. Yeah, they were. Not only is it a new technology, it was new name. You've got to build all of those. So partners, actually, by the way, were a key way to really help do those introductions.
And as a salesperson, what do you feel is your strongest characteristic?
Um, I think, oh, it's a good question. So I would definitely say qualification and sort of, being brutal with my time. And I think customers respect that when you're open. In fact, just came off a call now with a client that's looking at one of our technologies we're not a great fit for, but we're a good fit for part of it. So rather than waste their time, look, we're not going to bid on this RFP, but actually where we can help you is here, and we're really strong. And that's our answer there. I think loyalty is key. I think never shirking the tough stuff, right? It's too easy to not return a call when a customer is the technology might not be delivering to the customer's requirement, and I think holding their hand through that journey, which can be 3, 4, 5 years, and staying aligned to them through that time. Yeah, I think that's probably my spidey power. I think by the way, I think I've also got. I look at salespeople. There are salespeople in life that have got high IQ. They're really smart. They're really academic. They've been to Oxford. They've been to Cambridge. They've read every book. They can medic the hell out of everything. And they'll be successful because they can follow a process. I think where people have a lot of IQ, you can't measure that. EQ, sorry, you can't measure EQ. And I see a lot of successful salespeople who may be slightly on the spectrum somewhere, but have a high EQ. They're able to read a situation. They're able to read body language. They're able to see subtle cues in what the customer said, and listen. And they listen more, by the way. I think though and when I'm recruiting, I look for people who have higher EQ, more, that are able to build personal relationships that people with IQ, really high IQ, might struggle to do. So there's definitely a place for both. So yeah,
Yeah.
I have very high EQ.
Because you would think that qualification is IQ, but it's really EQ.
Yeah, yeah,
It's pattern matching. How does this deal sound compared to the deals that close? Or does it sound more like the deals that never close?
yeah. And gut feel is you can't teach that. You have a sense, and I think that comes, by the way, with experience, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think definitely pattern matching. uh, There are certain times, I think, when you've got a young sales force that may have just graduated, having a process, helping them with, understanding things like Medic. I have a cut down version of Medic that I'll use for deals, spending hours and days with people, reviewing a Medic template. For me, it's like, it goes back to the time thing is, some people might find that useful because they've got a process. But for me, there's a lot of that comes from experience and the EQ side of things. So yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I think it's the great thing about sales is it fits everybody. But the other thing as well, by the way, passion. If you're not passionate about selling and you're not passionate about your technology and the product and your leadership in your company, you just find something else. Go and find another company, because if you're not passionate, I don't know how you can sell a technology if you're not passionate about it. So be passionate about it.
And how did you get passionate about security? It's not glamorous, right? Or,
Yeah,
they don't make movies about it, right? It's
no,
kind of,
that's true. I mean, security. So Infoblox, Nutanix, Rubrik were more infrastructure.
okay.
Security is something that's kind of relatively sort of new to me. Um, the story about behind Chronicle, which fits, is the basis of what we're doing today, is super powerful because it was built after Google got hacked in 2008. And so the story is we use it to protect ourselves, and we are, a massive, large hyperscaler. We can help you protect yourself with the same technology. Would you like that? Oh, and by the way, we can help you save costs and improve efficiency, and help you move to the cloud. So that's a real, I think I can be
Telling
passionate about that.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because you know, if you've got Google's backing behind you to help you secure your environment, well, I want that, not
Right.
a little startup with, 3 engineers.
Yeah, cool. Hey, Stephen, really appreciate your time. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Stephen E. Haig, and yeah, love to connect if anybody wants to. Look forward to hearing from anybody with any questions.